firm motion down. And then you just keep going like that. What is your understanding of systemic or institutional racism? And do you have any way of addressing that?
I mean, we know that there's systemic racism in Canada because we know that Indigenous peoples, Black people, racialized people are completely underrepresented in positions of power and influence in the country. We know that from health outcomes. Of course, you'll know that. These health outcomes are directly linked to systemic racism. It's because the way in which the system operates, it's not thoughtful in a way that recognizes the barriers to health equity, for example, that Indigenous people face. And so there's no question. We only need to look at the outcomes, and we only need to open our eyes and look around the world to see that there is systemic racism. I think what we need to do is be very thoughtful about how we can address these barriers. So education is very important. And of course, particularly for First Nations, Indigenous peoples, to have the tools that education offers, the tools, as you were saying, to go back and help your people, it's enormously powerful.
My understanding is probably maybe different from yours because it's from our oral teachings from our elders, which are equally as valid as to the written text of treaty. And when we agreed to treaty, it was to share the land, and share with each other. So we were supposed to learn about the newcomers, and the newcomers were also equally supposed to learn about who we are. And so if we think about how that's happened so far with residential schools as an example, where our children were sent to learn forcibly about the visitors' education and what has happened as a result of that. But there's not been the reciprocity in terms of learning about Indigenous education and Indigenous laws, which are the original laws of Turtle Island. My first day of university, after being, since 4, I wanted to be a doctor. And I started growing my hair out because when I walked down the halls of the University of Alberta by the Health Sciences Library, and there's all the different classes from like the 50s and 60s, all I saw was white men, white males. And then eventually women got into that mix. And then eventually Dr. Betty Steinhauer, who's from Saddle Lake, who's our relative, became the first female Indigenous medical doctor in Canada in 1982, I believe. So you're on Treaty 6, which is the foundation for this Canadian value of universal healthcare, but the medical learners don't have anyone to learn from in an authentic way about their treaty partner, who has the most morbidity and mortality, who they're going to be treating in the hospitals. So what are your thoughts on supporting Indigenous medical learners?
Certainly something I've learned as a teacher is that for our Indigenous students to thrive in a program, there's really 2 things that are really important. I think first that they need support, and if you need to feel connected to a local community that will support them. And then the other thing you mentioned is Indigenous students need to see themselves reflected in the faculty. It's absolutely essential. If they don't see themselves reflected in the university, how can the university be a place for them? Indeed, for all of our diverse students from many diverse backgrounds. And when I arrived at the University of Alberta with my husband, I grew up in Alberta, and the Alberta I grew up in, well, I certainly could have married the man I loved, and I would not have been welcomed. And I wondered what kind of welcome I would receive at the university. And I have to say, the welcome has been deeply touching and genuine and across the board, both within the university and the Edmonton community. I want that same welcome for all of our students. I want that for our Indigenous students. I want that for our Black students. I want that for our trans students. I want that for everyone who is bringing their diversity and their difference to the university. I want exactly the same welcome for them. Having powerful voices like your own is very important.
How are you going to get your faculty out and to experience things like this and to use alternative forms of teaching and engage with elders?
Well, I think the first thing I can do is to try to lead by example and do that myself. And that's why I want to thank you and all of your community members for including me today. I have a lot more to learn. I know that. I look for more of these opportunities and also encourage my colleagues to likewise explore and learn and be open. I think have an open heart, I think is most important, and an open mind. Yeah.
Amazing. Having an Indigenous medical school partnered with Indigenous post-secondary institutions who have the expertise in Indigenous medicines, Indigenous law, Indigenous education, Indigenous teaching methods, that we can work together and actually transform the health statistics of Indigenous people.
We have a particular obligation to the Indigenous peoples of this land, one that runs deep, and one that we have not honored, and we need to correct that. And I think in the field of health, but I also would say in law and education and business, we need to open doors and we need to work together. And I have been very honored to meet you, James.
Yes, thank you.